Banda souffle, connais mere lankanoma, banda telefe, nyemere lankanoma, aloma lo de nila kanu belema, sontendi animola, aya, mushiri, jarabi mani, muso yesila di anyeke kuati femfo, the silva vilampo, nalo yendi anyeke mahane kansi oku, obeke. Nalo yendi ngoya nyeke makongansi okumsavapa la muru barantinya konyo musoko kadinye konyo muso merete iko kadine yede konyo musoko kadinye konyo muso lambeti iko kadine yede konyo musoko kadine yako mon chéri jarabi manyinde alo yenne na ilefe ni bedi alero sila ile fe ni bedi ayero alo yemma kuma ni la fe mon chéri ni bedi ayero muso sila di anyeke kuma ti fanfo de si fa felanku nalu yendi di anyeke mahane kamsi oku obeke nalu yendi ngoya anyeke ma ko kamsi oku sabapa konyo muso merete tiko kadine konyo muso kadine konyo muso lambe tiko kadine yede konyo muso kadine yako mon chéri jarabi manyinde alu yenne ni na ile fe ni bedi ayero alu yenko sila ile fe ni bedi ayero alu yemma kuma ni lele fe mon chéri ni bedi ayero. Iko kadanye ile donki lidanya oko kadanye danyo jeli ko kadanye ile donkenya oko kadanye tanti bako iko kadanye ile yele nya oko kadanye tanti bako iko kadanye mon chéri jarabi manyinde mon chéri jarabi manyinde mon chéri jarabi manyinde iduma yakanu jarabi manyinfa mon chéri jarabi manyinde 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 mon chéri jarabi manyinde.
Ujai, and welcome to the Wisdom of the Nile show. And my name is Nahipsa Nesabik, and I'm the host for tonight's show, alongside with my co-host Atini Kasati, And we'll be presenting tonight's show. We'll be presenting tonight's show representing the Herb Center. And the Herb Center is an organization, it's a non-profit organization which is promoting and preserving Thames culture. And yeah. So
We're using the yellow one, that's this one.
yeah. Yeah, we want to acknowledge and honor and validate the divine world. Yeah, we want and validate the divine world and the ancestors for our existence, and to acknowledge and honor and validate the Prophet Nebnaba Lumusa Morendenebig for dedicating his life to bringing traditional culture to humanity. Now, Nebnaba Lumusa Morendenebig was a Dogon high priest from the village in Burkina Faso, belonging to a lineage of healers, tracing their history back to the Nile Valley civilization. In 1995, Prophet Nebnaba embarked on an unprecedented journey across the globe after receiving the blessing and support from the Gulmi royalties, the dignitaries of the traditional temples, and the grand divinities of Kemet. Now, Nebnaba mission was to bring the knowledge of the existing Kemetic temple to the general public for the benefit of humanity. And he opened the first Earth Center school in Chicago in 1995, where he began to take people through the initiatic process. The Earth Center began to grow as the demand for authentic knowledge increased. And after his transition in 2008, he was referred to as the Makaru, and that means the truth teller. Now, after Nebnaba passing, Naba Irita continued to expand the work of Nebnaba to us here in the UK and across the globe. Now, there are currently, say, 9 Earth Centers across, 9 Earth Centers. We have six in the USA, we have 2 in the UK, and currently 1 school, like in Canada, and it's increasing. Now, the Earth Center consists of 4 different branches: the M-Time School of Kemetic Knowledge, and the M-Time School of Kemetic Philosophy and Spirituality, where 3 subjects are taught. The first topic really that's taught in the M-Time School is Medu Mahit. The Greeks call it hieroglyphs, but we call it the Medu Mahit, and there's the Medu Neta, which is a higher tier to it. So there's actually 2 tiers to the Medu. Now, this is humanity's original language, the first language spoken really by the gods, and this language is understood by nature, and this language helps us to stimulate the brain to use more than the 10% capacity which the English dialect limits us to. The language actually has about 300 and odd different sounds, and it carries about 400 and odd different ideograms, and basically it makes the language clear to understand, because each word more or less has an ideogram representing what the word means. So it makes it easy for us to understand clearly who and what they're referring to. Now, the second class is the Katibi class, and in this class here we do meditation and yoga. And this class we learn about the cosmogony, like things like the creation story. We learn our prayers. We use these prayers to do our Zemzem, and these prayers are about 75,000 years old. So they're quite authentic and original, and they do carry a lot of power to them, really. And we use these every day when we do our Zemzem, really like to call upon our ancestors and the divine world. Now the third class is actually Sunt, which is like this is like a healing class, and in this class here we learn how the body functions from a traditional perspective, and the techniques of assessing and diagnosing the body. Now that is the first kind of branch and so the second branch is where they do like the Firefly edition, which this is the publication section, where like all of our literature, things like that is published. This section, this is for disseminating the traditional knowledge across the globe. In this section here, the publishing company, they published the book like the Philosophy Podium. This is a book actually written by the first Dogon. Now there are a lot of books out there that's kind of written about the Dogons, but the Philosophy Podium is actually the first book that's actually written by a Dogon, and this is written by Nebnaba Morendek Lamusa Morendenibig. And in that there it has a lot, it's got a lot of topics, different topics and subjects which we actually learn about doing our initiations. It's quite a good book really to have in your collection. We also do like the Initiatic Tales. That is a book where it carries initiatic tales, which are like, if you're familiar with like Anansi stories, they're very similar. They're like parables, really, but they're very interesting. And it's not a big book, but it actually, the stories and things, when we do make a reading from them every week, more or less, really. So it gives you food for thought, really, these different tales. We also do like the Book of Purification, and in that book, basically, it's got it basically explains to us really how we do our ablution, because before we do our Zemzem, we have to do our ablutions, and this is where we have to say like wash our hands, our mouth, our feet, and it takes us through like the full process. It gives you like illustration, basically, step-by-step procedure of how to do it. And basically ablutions is what we do really, right, as a form of purification really, before we actually present ourselves to the deities and to our ancestors, which is very important. You know, so because we're actually kind of trying to approach something higher than ourselves. So it's in this book it also gives you the prayers, so you can learn the prayers that I was referring to earlier on. They're giving it to you in the Medu language, and also it gives you like the English translation. We also do the Fireflies, which again we do readings from those as well every week, more or less, and they carry kind of different stories really. Like some of them are taken from the Philosophy Podiums, some of them are what actually what initiates themselves actually writes. So they're quite interesting really, you know, because it gives us like an idea really, like of what, yeah. As I said, some of the tales are coming from the Philosophy Podium really, right, and some of them as subjects which we actually go through initiation, where people give their account really like of their overview of what's been taught to them in the class. We also have the 77, which is like the 77 is like our it's the divine code of human conduct, and basically that is where the 10 commandments was taken from, and that really is our, you can say, our Bible really, because that's what we've tried to follow. Yeah. And we also have the DVDs, which are there are audio DVDs of lectures on Nebnaba, Lumusa, and we also have like CDs, audios. We also have the Mandala Dendera, and that's basically is like where astrology is, where they get like the mappings of all the star, and yeah, that gives us like it gives us the original positions of where like all the stars are in the sky there. So we also have the T-shirts, which are again produced by the Earth Center. We have the sunny side. Well, I mentioned the sunny side. Yeah. What else is there? No. Yeah. The third section we do is the Ancasta, and this is Ancasta. This is where they do the natural healing. Here, we provide readings by priests and healers who are devoted in preserving traditional, medicinal, spiritual knowledge. And you can get like say earth readings on your health and other issues out there where they actually use the earth energies really to do these readings, which are very accurate really. It's where like you get these clairvoyants and people like that really, right, where they do their reading, but this is a lot more accurate really than what they offering you out there. And the fourth segment really is we have like the project in Merita, where we're trying to find our own solution in Africa, Merita, where they're basically constructing water wells for clean water, traditional farming. So they're trying to kind of say still maintain like the traditional way of farming and kind of say keep our crops organic, as opposed to what the Western world is offering us, like a lot of pesticide and things like that. So the idea is to try to kind of say to keep the traditional way of farming and keep things natural as possible. For purchasing any of these products and reaching like the Earth Center, my co-host is gonna read out like the numbers from the EC as to say where you can get the products.
Rushais. Contact details for the Earth Center. Telephone number 0207 175 4144. So that's 0207 175 4144. Email address inquiries-uk@theearthcenter.org. So that's inquiries-uk at theearthcenter.org. Center is spelled CENTER. Facebook, theearthcenter.uk. Twitter, Kebtar UK. Kebtar is KEBTAH. Instagram, at the Earth Centre of UK. Website, theearthcenter.org. The contact details for our Coventry number is 0247 6266 859 and 0730 5995 944. Going to read the proverb of the week, which is a Kemetic proverb. Better to be silent and let people wonder than to open your mouth and remove all doubt.
Dua Hussein. The number for the studio, if anyone wants to kind of say interact or want to contribute to the station, well, we're broadcasting from Bless Radio, Bless FM, and the number for that really is 0794443136. I repeat, the number is 443136. And so for if anyone, as I say, want to contact the studio, really, that's the number. If you have anything you would like to add to the show, really, or when we have our guest on from Chicago, then if anybody wants to interact, you can feel free, and that's the contact number that you can reach the studio through. We're just going to play a short little interlude and go on to another section of the show.
Gende demba ugende surambali. Africa unite. Africa unite. 'Cause we're moving right out of Babylon, and we're going to our father's land. How good and how pleasant it will be before God and man to see the unification of all Africans. As it's been said already, let it be done. We are the children of the Rastaman. We are the children of the Ayaman. So Africa unite, 'cause we're moving right out of Babylon, and we're going to our father's land. Yeah. Africa unite. How good and how pleasant it will be before God and man to see the unification of all Rastaman. As it's been said already, oh, let it be done. I'll tell you who we are under the sun. I'll tell you who we are in the middle of this war. We are the children of the Rastaman.
Ujjayi, and welcome back to the Wisdom of the Nile show. And we're representing the Earth Center. This section here, where this topic here, we will be talking about destruction and self-destruction. And we would say that destruction is death and self-destruction is killing yourself. Now, this is a big topic, this one here, really, and we're just going to skim over the surface, really. So as we see in society, we see on a level in society, destruction by the Indo-European through their doctrine of hatred for other people has led to them rejecting the past and try to recreate it for themselves. Now, the Greeks and the Romans have imposed their doctrine on the world, expressly to those who introduce it to them. And black people have educated them and helped them to assimilate the concept of good and evil. And taught them about the gods. That are responsible for these phenomena. Is it coming through? Yeah, anyway, in this topic here, really, what we see is the Europeans, really, the Greeks and the Romans have came in and basically imposed themselves on the world and tried to kind of say rewrite the page of history and put themselves in that position, really, where they become the dominant force. Consequently, killing the people and really, and ostracizing them really from the ones who taught them about the gods that are responsible for those phenomena, Set and Horus. The biggest irony of the Indo-European people is that after black people educating them and helped them to assimilate the concept of good and evil and taught them about the gods that are responsible for those phenomena, Set and Horus, the Indo-European decided that these same black people were the children of Set. And Set is like they renamed Set, Satan, and that's where we get the that word Satan from, the god Set. And they must be, well, their aim was to try to exterminate us. And these are the people giving us the impression of being incapable of, they are very incapable of love and acting for the good of humanity. Now, on a social level, we see they've taught us, basically, they've given us this concept of church, the concept of their own gods. They've indoctrinated us really in thinking the way that they want us to think. We are given their views, their values, and their influences, which we're walking around believing, really, right, that we are the ones, really, that's actually kind of deciding our own destiny, our own faith. But all this has been kind of, say, predetermined by those who are there at the moment, kind of, say, controlling the world. And they are the ones that's actually, so when we go around, we're thinking, really, right, that, yeah, we're thinking for ourselves, we're not realizing, really, right, that subliminally within the education system, in the media, all the mediums that they have out there, really, right, in kind of reaching to us really, right, that we've been conditioned to behave certain way. So when we believe that we're acting of our own free will, we're actually acting out what they've put there for us really to kind of to do. And consequently, really, like when we look in our communities, we see that we can see the aftermath. Really, our children out there self-destructing, consciously or unconsciously. They believe that they know what they're doing, but they're not aware of what they're doing. And a part of the agenda really is like cause and effect. So they create certain kind of scenes really, right, so that they can implement laws to control us and to contain us. And predominantly it's just one set or group of people who is kind of suffering the blunt of what they're doing. And we are the ones, I mean, when they came in, we were the ones really that they took the knowledge from. And so it's in their interest really, right, to try to kind of say to exterminate us really, and that's the program that's been set against us. We also see self-destruction when we are no longer useful to the earth. We see where the earth energy, if one becomes not useful to the earth, to the energies really that way, because we're connected to the earth. And so when we go against that, the earth can put us on a path of self-destruction. And not necessarily when we go on that path it doesn't mean to say we're going to die, but if we are no longer in tune with the earth, it will put us on that path of destruction. Yeah, where we... You want to say something? Yeah, where we go into that mode, right, where we either eliminate ourselves by, all the means really that we have out there, in kind of say they reward us really, like say for example in the music industry, right, where we have our so-called celebrities. They would earn abundance of money, but what they do with the money is that they self-destruct on it. And so it's about, once you're putting out there what they want you to do, then you'll be all right. But once you go against the flow of what they want, then they find ways and means really, like of exterminating us really. And that's one of the things then that we have to be mindful of really, right, that not necessarily that we ask for things really, and when we get them we don't know what the consequences are behind them. So destruction really, we see as I said, we see the system, it comes to us in many different ways. Destruction and self-destruction. I mean, we see they use the churches, they give us the religions, which basically is leading us nowhere. So the people believe really, right, that they're getting somewhere, but actually, right, it's a dead end road. And so, we spend, it's like a destructive path, really. And it's ironic, really, that the only reason why this is brought to us, really, is that the criminals that is taking, that the criminal that is talking about his victim is a slave driver that is talking about the slave, and it is the butcher who's talking about the animal, and it is the wolf that is talking about the lamb. And so when we see that, really, we kind of say, we look at, like, say, they've taken control, and basically they try to turn it around and make us look like, say, we're the perpetrators, really. And because they're writing the history books, really, that domination of the mind, where, they make us out to be like, say, we are the aggressors, when really, when you look at it, they are the ones, really, right? But because they're the controlling the medium, they can turn it back against us and make it look like, to say, well, we are the ones that's actually kind of say doing the wrongs and the injustice out there. And yeah, so we've got a short article again we just like to read, and basically this one is kind of roughly covering self-destruction. Do you want to read this out?
Yeah, Hujayi. This article is from the Firefly magazine on Society and Individual Destruction, Part 2, Infected with Self-Destruction, by Nebnaba Musa Moradenibig. After a serious analysis of the behavior of certain individuals, one is tempted to ask the question, are they really part of this earth and universe? One can say they are simply humans that have failed the test of the dialogue of energies. And like all failures, they hide in an illusion of glory not based on reality. Ashamed for having been rejected by a nature that they couldn't understand, they rushed to construct or simply imagine an illusory reality to replace the energetic reality that actually surrounds them. This new world that they have created has no other goal than to keep their illusions alive for their entertainment until their final destruction. Initiatic education teaches us that the addiction to destruction and self-destruction is caught like a virus, meaning unknowingly. Destructive germs were introduced on our planet precisely 4,242 years ago by a series of species of humanoids who lived in caves because their skin and their eyes were painfully oversensitive to sun and other light. It is this species that introduced in Europe the cult of infant sacrifices. The sacrifice of newborns persisted in Europe until around the year 800 of the Christian period, and those infant sacrifices stopped only when the biblical story of Yahweh replaced the infants with Abraham's sacrificial ram and was then seen as a divine. This is not all. There was in the same period a more shocking behavior. During the whole first millennium, there was a religion more popular than Christianity. It was called the rank of the hanged. Their ritual consisted of simply hanging themselves by the neck in their churches one day and being freed only in the last minutes of life. For this religion, the ecstasy of the last moments before death was considered divine. Let's notice that often people could not survive the experience. This practice stopped around 1200 of the Christian period because all its spiritual leaders died from their own ropes. One can understand why the history of Europe has been simply reduced to historical accounts of the activities of kings, princes and dukes who govern the people. To be more accurate, the history of Europe before the first millennium of Christianity is generally reduced to the history of Greece and Rome. The truth is that Greece, Rome and the Middle East had been politically disassociated from the Kemetic continent since the year 730 of the Christian period. This information is not occult. Documentation for it is kept far away from the popular masses of today. One proof that as recently as during the Second World War, Hitler tried to recreate the pure Aryan race. People who had thought they were white found themselves facing a wall of denial because every European with hair and eyes any color other than that of white people were considered black and could not be part of the new Aryan race. This was happening just a few decades ago. The white race, if it exists, is the minority of the minorities that plays with the consciousness of those they consider to be an intermediate race which they can manipulate. Everything is simply a power game between factions of competing interests willing to impose on the world at any cost, what they simply imagine humanity and reality to be. Humanity has been taken hostage, and the whole planet is suffering from these humanoids' destructive germs. The individual, born from the love of a man and a woman, now finds herself to be a victim of the ambitions of other individuals who are too crippled to see their victim as anything than a brain to shape, a strength to exploit, or a soul to distract.
Wow, for that, yeah. We're gonna. That was a reading from the was that from the Firefly, and it was on this destruction, infected with self-destruction by Nebnabam Lamusa. Yeah, we've got our guest uh, from the USA. Can you hear us, my brother? Ujai?
Ujai.
Ah, good.
Ushaye.
Yeah, Ujai. I'm Nehipsa, and my co-host is Kasati.
Ushaye is Atane.
Yeah,
Ujai.
Ujai. So we want to welcome you to the Wisdom of the Nile show. Going out here in London here, on Bless FM, and I would just like to say happy ancestral holy day today.
Same to you.
And I pray that your ancestors then will kind of continue to guide you in the path as they're guiding us here as well. First of all, could you just introduce yourself, please, to the listeners, who you are, and just give a brief overview of like what your name kind of mean, please.
Okay. You said what my main.
Your name.
Okay, I got you. Okay, yeah. So thanks for having me on the show. It's definitely a pleasure, and I definitely appreciate what you all have been doing with the show and your consistency and discipline with it. And I think it's needed for what our mission is. My name is Bukepra Hekutep, and I've been an initiate for going on about 6 years. I graduated almost 3 years ago, and my name roughly translates into the place of transformation. So Kepra is an Ater that governs over like the concept of transformation and reincarnation and like evolution, and Bu carries the concept of like house or place. So my name would roughly translate into like the place of that divinity or like the house of that divinity.
So you're saying more or less like this is the nun. Yeah, that's why I was quite interested. Yeah. So your journey. So you said you've been in the EC about 6 years, and you've just graduated 3 years. So was there a reason why it took you took so long for you to go through?
Yeah, it was difficult. I think my generation started off with we started with maybe close to 20 people, and we just traversed a lot of different things. But I think also my generation was one of the last generations where they were really going to let kind of the per-unc process kind of carry on that long. So I think we were actually the last generation that it took that long, because even before I had graduated, most people it was taking them 2 to 3 years to finish the first level. So yeah, it took us 3 years, and it's still the process. I feel like the process, whatever we went through, it was exactly what I needed to get to where I needed to be. Mm-hmm. So I'm forever grateful for the process I went through, and I appreciate all of my teachers and, the work of the Makaru that I'm able to benefit from now. And I can only hope that I'm, doing my best to live up to the expectations that, are placed on us.
So Hatani, what was your reason for entering into initiation with the Earth Center?
Mm-hmm. Uh, Man, I think really I found myself in a very, very like frustrating position, and it was an honest position as well. I was just very, very frustrated at the fact that I had spent a nice chunk of my life trying to find the truth or trying to live a spiritual life, trying to figure out what it meant to be a good human being on the planet, trying to figure out why I have this life that I'm living and what am I supposed to be doing with it. Those were always questions that I've always had with me as early as I can remember. So my life was kind of, in many ways, if I wasn't caught up in distractions that life has for you, I was trying to figure life out. And I hit kind of a roadblock where I was stuck because I studied everything. I studied Christianity. I studied Islam. I studied the New Age spiritual systems. I had crystals. I was meditating. I was doing yoga. I was eating alkaline. I was whatever. I was doing it. And I was perplexed because no matter what you look up, what you research, everybody swears that what they're standing on is the truth. And so as a person that's seeking the truth, and on your left you have someone saying something, and on your right you have someone saying the complete opposite, but both of them are willing to die for what they're standing on, then it puts me in a conflicting position. It's like, how do I determine which one is telling the truth and which one is the liar? How do I know the path that I'm supposed to walk? And I was just so frustrated. And to me, I didn't think it was fair. I was like, this isn't fair. This isn't fair to me, and this isn't fair to all human beings. Like, how are we supposed to know what the truth is? How are we supposed to know what it is that we're supposed to do with this life that we're given? How am I supposed to know? There's so much noise. There's so many different people trying to point us and pull us in certain directions. How am I supposed to know which way to go? And so I had reached kind of that breaking point where I was just very, very frustrated. And I'm from North Carolina, so that's where I was born and raised out. And I was in North Carolina, and I just really kind of pleaded. I just kind of prayed the best way that I knew how to pray at that point in time. And I really just kind of was speaking to whoever it was that created me. I was like, whatever it is that's out there, I don't know what it is, who it is, how to address it, or whatever, but I know something created me. And whatever it is that created me, like, I'm speaking to you, and I'm just saying I want to know the truth. But I don't just want to know the truth for myself, but I want to know the truth for all of us. Like, it's just not fair. I'm in this position. I was just really communicating very, very honestly. And the next day, I came across Master Naba videos on YouTube, and it completely changed my whole life. Completely changed everything. I watched one YouTube video, watched them all, and I said, this guy right here, he's the truth. Because I could just tell in what he was communicating concepts that maybe I had thought about or understood in my mind, but didn't have the intelligence to articulate it. And to see him articulating things very, very easily that to me took me a lot of thinking and processing to get to certain levels of understanding. He was just easily just speaking them. I knew, like, oh, I need to learn from him. He's the one that I need to follow. And So I stopped everything I was doing in North Carolina, and I started calling around, trying to figure out where I could initiate. And long story short, it ended up being Chicago, and I had 2 weeks to get to Chicago to start initiation to join the generation. And so I stopped everything and moved to Chicago.
So, eh, so as you said before, really, I can resonate with what you were saying there about, like, say, searching for something, and as you said, you've explored different avenues. And so, what was it that resonated though, that make you kind of say, conclude in your mind that this is the place?
Hmm. I think a lot of what, like the videos that I watched on YouTube, one that kind of sticks out with me at this point in time that really hit me was, it was a video when he was talking about the nature of evil.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about how evil moves, like it moves from one person to another, how, you know, someone can do something bad to you, and you start setting your mind with, with the perception of like, okay, I need to get this person back. And then when you do that, now the evil moves to you, and you use that as a justification to now retaliate against this person. And I've seen that's something I've seen my whole entire life. That's something I couldn't deny. Like I saw that, understood that. Like I've seen how that happens, and it's something that, even before approaching initiation, I tried to protect myself from. And so that resonated with me so much that here's a person, because I didn't have a way to articulate that, but I understood it. I didn't have a way to talk about it with anybody. It's something I never discussed with anybody, but it's something I understood and tried to protect myself from. And to have this man speaking about it so easily, like, and, from a perspective that he understood it so well, and he connected it to history and everything that he was coming from, I just knew that, okay, that, I had something that I can learn from this person. And then on top of that, I had been studying, the Dogon, and I'd already came to understanding that out of everybody, the Dogon probably have something that humanity can benefit from. And so I was already kind of interested in the Dogon and things like that. And I was already looking into whatever comedic information that I could find on the internet and books and things like that. But I didn't know there was a connection. And then as soon as I found out that this person that I was listening to was like the both of those things in one, like it just made so much sense. I was like, oh, it's over. I need to. This is it. This is where I need to be. And this is also, I need to be in a place where I can be held accountable, because I was also just being honest with myself and knowing like, hey, I'm not the greatest person. Even I know that people around me, like I was the type of person that maybe people come to me for advice, my friends, my family, they come to me for advice, or people may think that I know certain things and stuff like that. But I know, like, man, I lie. I'm not always approaching things honestly. I'm mediocre. I knew these things about myself, and I didn't want to be that person. I wanted to be an honest person. I wanted to be a stand-up, good person. And so I knew that I had shortcomings, and so I knew that I needed to put myself in some sort of situation where I could be held accountable, because no one else around me was going to be holding me accountable.
And it is a hard kind of task, really, isn't it? As you say, trying to kind of, because our natural instinct, really, if someone do you something, is to just naturally lash back out, isn't it? But to
Yeah.
learn that, to have that humility and that kind of emotional control to contain yourself, I find that I struggle myself, really. So I understand exactly what you're saying there, and it must be, so I can see really your challenges really leading up to trying to find yourself. Um,
So, how did initiation help you with these challenges?
hmm I think, man, it helped me out tremendously because it's so big. It's so difficult to say in a couple of sentences. But I think one of the biggest things is that we know as initiates we stand on is the 77 commandments. And to have my exposure to the 77 commandments and then to actually go through them, maybe on a weekly basis or, every couple weeks and really focus on one commandment and write papers on it. And, because we would get assignments on the commandments. Like, okay, look at this commandment, define the commandment, break it down, figure out what it means and write, a paper on, your understanding of the commandment, and then find how you have broken the commandment, recently in the last week. Don't find something years ago. Find a way that you have broken the commandment recently. And that's very, very difficult to do. But it trains you. When you do that, it trains you to constantly be looking at yourself for these different corruptions. And just in that exercise and doing that and learning how to look at myself honestly, that's just helped me so much because it allowed me to see the dirtiness, to see the corruption. And then it's like once you see it, then maybe you feel the shame associated with it, but then you don't want to feel the shame anymore. So then you clean yourself. And then you just keep making that progress. You just keep cleaning yourself and keep cleaning yourself and keep cleaning yourself until you find yourself in a position where it's like, hey, I have something where now I can really truly assist people to at least get to where I am.
Hence your name. So, since receiving your name, how has that impacted on your family and friends and yourself?
There's I feel a big responsibility to live up to it, because we're given these names, and the names don't necessarily mean that's who we are. The names kind of represent who we are supposed to be, and what we have to work up to, and so I've had, I've really had to spend a lot of time meditating on my name and understanding, what that means and how I should be, carrying myself and speaking with, some of my teachers and priests and, gaining more understanding on how I should be moving forward with this name. And I can just feel for sure the responsibility. And one thing I was told is when you get the name, it's almost like a light switch turns on. It's like the switch turns on, and so now the planet looks at you different because you make a vow before you get the name. You make vows,
Yeah.
and in those vows, it's like you're vowing to really be a good person. You're vowing to really walk this path. You're vowing to be different than you were. And you're then held accountable for that when you're not walking that path and when you're not stepping the way you should be stepping. The planet, it's like the planet shakes you internally. Even if nobody else sees it, it like, man, I'm not stepping right, or man, I messed up this past week. I need to improve myself, or I need to, that's been my experience. And, in speaking with other people, a lot of other people have the same experience. So in terms of how it's affecting the people around me, like my family and things like that, I can never say what another person's experience is, but I know for sure how I've been affected by it. And so there's definitely, I do my best to stand better as a man within my family. I have a wife and 2 children, and so I do my best to be the man that I need to be for my family, be the man that I need to be for my community. Also work hard at trying to be the son that I can be for my parents. Just everything, just really looking at the different the different zuhets or the different like bubbles that I interact with, that I'm in, that I find myself in, like I need to ensure that I'm presenting the best version of myself in all those different scenarios. So in many ways, people report back to me that yeah, they see the change, they see, growth and things like that. But my biggest, you know, concern is to just ensure that I continue to grow, that I don't stagnate, that I'm always transforming. Like I have to continuously be in a state of transformation. If I am Bukepra, I have to continue to be in a state of transformation, and that means I need to keep moving forward and not moving backwards.
So today's topic is destruction and self-destruction. So would you like to give us your take on this?
Hmm. Well, I kind of missed the first part. What were some of the talking points up to this point on destruction and self-destruction?
Well, we were just talking about the system, basically, the Indo-European taking control, really, like, and trying to rewrite the pages, really writing themselves in. At the same time, they're trying to denigrate us, as if to say we are the ones that are the bad ones, when they really are the ones really who are doing the injustice to the world. And as you were saying about the destruction elements that they put out there, the entrapments, really, right, that takes us away from ourselves. That aspect of it, really, where they give us the religions, they give us their own gods. We taught them about the gods, and they took it and they renamed the gods into their names, really, right? So we end up worshipping and looking up to them as if to say they were the ones who basically did things, really, when it was us. And there was, as you know, destruction and self-destruction goes across the board, really. So we was actually looking at the opinions and the values that they actually give us out there as well. So it leads us down the wrong path, really, and where they reward us for doing bad things, and so we self-destruct, thinking that we're going forward again, and we slightly covered, like, say, like the Bayawali level of where, alongside what the system, what the Europeans are doing, we also have to be accountable to the earth. So as you were saying before, being that better person there and knowing yourself, that's what we're striving for, because ultimately at the end of the day, if we're in tune with the earth by Awali, then whatever is happening out there, it cannot touch us. So is that self-destruction and destruction, and that was the path that we was on, basically. If there's anything that you'd like to add on to that, really, feel free.
Yeah, for sure. Like, when I meditate on the concept, it's definitely connected to the Bayou and our positioning on the planet, how we are living our lives, and if we're serving the planet or not. Because, it's dangerous when we look outside of ourselves for the things that are bringing us destruction, and we don't look at ourselves. Like, that is one of the most dangerous things we can do, because no matter what, it comes back to us. We have to be willing to look at ourselves honestly and see, okay, how am I being my own enemy?
Mm-hmm.
How am I standing in the way of my own progress? What can I do to ensure that, I'm not putting shackles on my own wrist?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what we do. We do that all the time. And it really boils down to, if we just simplify it, the relationship that the human being has with comfort and ecstasy.
Yeah.
The things that we, you know, like, that make us feel good or that bring us some sort of pleasure, those are the things that we tend to gravitate to, and we tend to run from the things that cause us suffering or are painful or, you know, uncomfortable. But if we're talking about growth and moving forward and becoming, you know, intelligent, disciplined, you know, entities and working toward perfecting ourselves and all these things, that's nothing but a path of suffering. It's just a path that's paved with facing uncomfortable things and having to deal with challenges that make us rise to become better people. So whenever we find ourselves in those positions where we're just trying to be comfortable, or we're just looking for something that's going to help us feel good or feel better, then we're destroying ourselves because we're not moving forward. So that's that self-destruction that we continue to perpetuate within ourselves, when the only thing that we're seeking are things that are going to make us feel better.
But do you find that the system, as we were saying before, that the system, it kind of, as you say, it rewards you when they see that you're going in that path? Because we know that Set basically was there long before, really, kind of put these obstacles, really, knowing that many of us are going to trip up. And, you know, as you were saying before, one of the hardest thing really is to face our challenges and to abstain from what we know, because you know, it's there within ourselves. Because what we're trying to do now is to resurrect what was there, which is what they try to suppress really from us, you know. And as the Macaroon said in one of his things, you know, if you had the choice to sit on a chair or to sit on the floor, then, you know, most of us would want to sit on the chair. But doing that, we disconnect ourselves, like, from the energies of the earth, and the system gives us that as you would say, comfort, and we all are seeking or think that's what's the best thing for us, you know, when really it's just leading us to destruction, you know. So
yeah, absolutely, I agree. The system, I mean, we learn from the system how to destroy ourselves. You know, like you're saying, like, we're born into a world where Set, you know, is just waiting for you, and has trap after trap after trap after trap just set for you. You know, Set knows the nature of the human being. He knows, you know, everything. And so the traps are set. They're just there waiting for you to fall into it before we are even fully aware that we're even existing in this world. We're already in the traps, you know. And so we learn, you know, the society is set up in a way where it pushes you toward, you know, the pursuit of happiness. There's nothing more important to the human being than the pursuit of happiness, just being happy, you know. But it's like, how dishonest of a foundational value is that to teach people to stand on, when happiness isn't defined? When you can have two people in a room where one person's view of happiness, what makes them happy, could simply just be hurting the other person.
yeah,
You know, and so it's like, are we telling these people to just pursue what makes you happy? You know, like, that's just very, very dangerous. But it's just teaching us to, you know, always seek and try to find that thing that feels good, and, you know, as much as we can, try to avoid the thing that brings us displeasure or discomfort. There's no way we can run from it, though. Like, no matter what type of lifestyle you live, you're gonna face suffering. That's just, you know, the planet is gonna bring that to you. You can't avoid it. But if you just try to run from it your whole life, you're never going to grow. But if you embrace it and maybe you run toward it, or as we say in initiation, become friends with suffering, you'll see the benefit.
As I say, it's an uphill struggle, really, isn't it? And without that struggle, like anything, if it comes easy, you don't appreciate it, really. So, um, everybody wants that easy life, really, but no one wants to kind of say, come out of that comfort zone. And this is where initiation really challenges you, though, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's like, I remember just, when I started initiation and I started getting real, having an understanding of the concept of self-destruction and understanding the Bayou Ali and these different things, I would, work to kind of try to choose the tougher path for myself, down to the simplest thing. Like if I was, maybe I'd be in a like a shopping mall or something. You have stairs and you have an escalator. Instead of taking the escalator and just riding, the way to the top, I would take the stairs. And I made a habit out of doing that. And it's like just in that small action, I was training myself to really work, or to not be afraid, or to not be working to avoid the harder path. Because really a lot of times it's that, or all the time, it's that harder path that, we need to be walking in order to, make us stronger.
Yeah.
And so I would do little things like that, and you could scale it up to bigger things, bigger decisions, whatever. But I would be trying to, do my best to make those type of decisions in how I function.
So I realized that you've just come back from pilgrimage. So can you tell us how that has strengthened you on this uphill journey?
Man, pilgrimage is always a life-changing experience. This is my second time going, so both times I spent around 2 months in country in Medita, traveling around. And this time coming back to America, to the West, I have more of a clear understanding of what it is that I need to be doing here. What it is, like the reason for me being here, the reason for me being here in America, what I need to be doing with my time, what my priorities are. Because this time being on pilgrimage, I've learned so much. I began to kind of apprentice into certain things and really, grab more hold of like stronger understandings of the culture, and even understand more about the things that I don't understand or the things that I didn't know that I didn't understand. And I just know that I really need to, I need to be home. I need to be back home in Medita. Like that's where I need to be. That's where my children need to be. That's where my family needs to be. So anything that I'm doing here in America, I need to be working toward that. I need to be working toward getting my family more permanently in Medita. And I can always come and visit the US. So I can go visit the UK or visit wherever I need to visit to do whatever work that I have to do. But the place that I call home needs to be Medita, because like I'm at this point, that's the energy that I'm carrying. It's like I just know for sure that I don't want to be here in America. Like I don't support the values. I don't. I've seen better. I'm not impressed anymore. Maybe as a kid growing up, teenager, young adult, I was impressed. But at this point, I'm not impressed anymore. And I've seen too much in Medita to know that what I'm experiencing here is not the real thing. And so now I just want the real thing. I want the real food. I want I don't want this GMO stuff. I want the real thing. I want a real meal. And I believe my children deserve that as well. And so, um, for me, like the way it's reinforced my uphill journey is just me knowing, having more of a clear direction on what I need to do to get to where I need to be.
And as you say, like being that path, your children, you're setting that direction. You then become their God, because it's like the God that they give us to follow is leading us nowhere. So, you know, setting your path, your destiny there, is giving them a good standing, really. Because we say that the entrapment in the system out there, really, there's just one direction. I mean, here in England, we have just pure chaos every week. It's someone's been killed, and they're setting new laws to kind of to get us out, and they just seem to be targeting one set of people. Really, that's their eyes are on us. So the longer we stay here, it's about exterminating us, really. So the as you say, we have to get out of here. But that consciousness, that we have to become more aware, really. And the picture that they paint of Africa there really is very negative. So going there, at least you can see for yourself, that there's a lot happening there. That connection back to nature, all those simple things, the food, the destruction in the food. We see our children eating all these processed food, and some of them are, they're just overweight, oversized, like a lot of medical conditions, and they're very young. So it doesn't really look very kind of promising, their future. I was noticing though on your profile picture there that you have this I don't know if it was a scarf or something that you was wearing around your neck. It looks like a steak. Yeah, could you tell
On
us
my WhatsApp picture?
Yeah, could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was my first. I think that's a picture from my first pilgrimage. But yeah, we traveled to Benin, and in Benin we have a very strong relationship with the Voodoo culture and the priests there, and so we traveled to the Temple of Python, and there in this place they have these pythons there that they keep in the temple, and they keep them there. They take care of them, and in particular, this snake has a lot of divine qualities. This particular snake is like, it doesn't have poison, like it can't bite and administer poison for its prey. It just wraps itself around them and chokes it. And so people view it as like a protect, like it carries the concept of like protection and things like that. And yeah, so just in that picture, I believe I was at the temple, and so some of us had took some pictures with the snakes around our necks and things like that. And in me personally, I've always felt like some kind of connection with like reptile animals. And so I think eventually I'm gonna get me a snake and keep me a snake around. If not a snake, maybe a baby alligator or something. I don't know, something bizarre like that.
So obviously initiation is definitely helping you to live in harmony with nature, isn't it?
Oh yeah, for sure, or at least pointing out how I'm not living in harmony with nature.
Definitely.
It's not like initiation is that thing that pushes. You graduated, now you're in harmony with nature. No, it's like, you just see, okay, you see where you're not in tune with nature.
Yeah.
Even like my first time to meditate, I kind of had this fantasy in my head about how it was going to go, how it was going to be, and how my first Zim in the bush was going to be. And for the listeners, like Zim is like prayer and meditation ceremony that we do daily. And I'm just picturing this beautiful process, like in the nature, doing my meditations and chants and all this stuff. I've got it all played out perfectly like a movie in my head, right? And so I'm there. We're in Tambiga. We're in the Macadoo's village, and there's these big, beautiful baobab trees there.
Oh,
And so I pick a spot. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do it right here under the baobab tree. I got my prayer mat. I do my purifications, and then just the weather's feeling nice, the wind's blowing. It's just everything's perfect. And I get to the tree, and I'm down, and I start doing the Zimzim, and a bee comes and lands on my nose. And I took it as a challenge. I'm like, okay, this is nature challenging me. Let me just ignore it. Let me just ignore it and continue my Zimzim and finish my Zimzim. And so I'm, just doing my Zimzim, and it's just kind of walking around on my nose, flying off and landing back on my nose. And I'm doing a good job at kind of just letting it do its thing. It wasn't bothering me really outside the fact just being on my nose. So I transitioned from one point in the Zimzim to another, and then it leaves. And so I'm like, okay, maybe I passed the test. Maybe I did good. But then when I transition into another part, I'm getting toward the end, and it comes back. And this time it's just more intense. Like it's moving around more. It's just more active. And so I'm doing my best to kind of, stay focused on the Zimzim and not let it distract me. And, but then there's a point it actually went in my nose. Oh. Once it went in my nose, that was like the limit of my my trying to ignore it. I had to do something at this point. Like I just couldn't, and so I tried to blow it out or whatever, and it stung me on the way out. And then I guess these particular bees in Medita, when they sting you, it attracts other bees. So it stung me on my nose, and then another bee came and stung me on my arm. And I look up, next thing I know, I'm just like surrounded by bees. So I'm if you would have saw me, it would have been the most hilarious thing. I'm just running off into the bush with my prayer rug. Just, couldn't finish my Zimzim, couldn't, and so I ran all the way back to the compound where we were sleeping at. Yeah. And I went and talked to Irita, one of our head priests, and I told him what happened. Like, yeah, I got stung, on my nose, and blase, and he said, "Where were you at?" And I was like, "I was under the baobab tree." And he told me, he was like, "Why didn't you just do Zimzim in the compound?" And it just hit me, and I had to be honest with myself, and the answer was because I had this fantasy in my head of how my Zimzim was supposed to look in Medita, and nature checked me. Nature let me know, like, hey, nah, that's not how you function here. Because even when I went to set my prayer rug down, I saw the bees like in the baobab tree, like kind of in a hole that was carved out. They were there, and if I was thinking properly, I wouldn't have set my mat there to do Zimzim there because I saw the bees there, But I ignored that, and I proceeded anyway. And nature checked me. Nature let me know, like, hey, my son, this is not how you do things here. And that's how nature is. Nature will let you know. It will let you know when you're not functioning the right way. Nature doesn't care about your emotions, doesn't care about, who you are, if you're famous, how much money you have. It doesn't care. What color you are, the color is how pretty or ugly you are. It doesn't care. Nature is going to check you if you don't function the right way, especially in Medita, because we're talking about a place where the divinities are present and fed and taken care of, and nature is very well alive. All the things that you see and then all the things that you don't see are very, very active there.
I mean, this is what they're saying, that we have to try to fit into the harmony of nature, really. And yeah, you found that the hard way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Hatani, what would you say to the listeners who are seeking spirituality and they don't know where to go?
Hmm. Well, I would say if they're listening to this radio show, they're already on the right path. So I would say, continue to research and really seek the truth. You know, just look for the truth. Never abandon your intelligence, and just be honest in your approach. Just be honest in your approach. I don't ever want to come from the position of being like, oh, if you're seeking spirituality, you need to come to the Earth Center, or you need to, walk the path that I'm walking, or what have you. I could never speak that way, but I know what has worked for me, and I do know that if you're looking for spirituality, the origins of it are on the continent of what we call Medita, commonly known as Africa. Everything can be traced back there. So if you can find traditional people that don't give their allegiance to the colonial powers, then you're going to find yourself in a place where you're closer to the truth. And so I would say, look into that, do your research, look into that, and however you can find yourself on that path, get on that path. The Earth Center is here and open for anybody and everybody, but someone's calling could be somewhere else, but you want to make sure that you investigate the history of what it is that you're getting into, where it is that they're getting their information from, and if you're able to investigate that, look into that, and follow that path. And that's what I was saying.
Okay, well.
Yeah, that's very interesting. We much appreciate your giving us some of your time, and I don't know if there's any last thing that you would like to say to our listeners out there, really, before we kind of wrap up this interview. Just words of encouragement, really, for those who are, I know you've just kind of said a little piece there, but anything to influence really the seekers, really, right, to get onto the path. Any words of encouragement that you'd like to put out there for them, just to wrap up the show.
Yeah, I would just say never abandon your intelligence, your thought process. Don't ever find yourself in a position where you're just blindly moving through life without actively thinking about what it is that you're doing, no matter what it is. Make sure that you are always using your intelligence and always doing what you can to improve your intelligence. And remember think about what we spoke about on the program about ensuring that you aren't afraid to embrace the suffering that's needed for us. Don't always be in a position where you're just seeking comfort and afraid to embrace, the suffering and discomforts that come with growth. So that would be that's the last thing I would have for the people.
Dua for that, yeah.
Dua Hatani.
Yeah. And we just like to say, many wishes to you and your family, and pray really right that they continue on the journey like we are trying to do here, and hopefully in the future at some later stage you can finish off your interview with us, because I'm sure your experience there in Merita will be inspiring, for me, because I haven't really been there on a pilgrimage, so really it's interesting to hear your experience, really. So I know if I was to go there, I'm not going to go under a baobab tree really, right, and do my zemzem. I'm going to stay in my tent. So you see, I've heard a lot from you already.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me, and I pray that I'm pretty sure that our paths will cross soon, in person. So we could all meet, and I wish courage to you all, and good job with the show, and I wish you all to continue to grow, and grab hold of everything that is waiting for you on your path.
Duo. And Emren Nakaru.
Emre Makru.
Yeah. And yeah, we would just like to play a short interlude of music again, and then move on to the next stage of interviewing a young initiate, really, right, who has just started, and we've just heard one initiate who have gone through. We've just heard one initiate who have made the journey, and you hear what he has to say. And we've got one up and coming initiate, really, who's just begun the journey. And so we'll bring him forth in 1 minute.
Banda telefe nyemiri lankanuma alumalo de nila kanu belema sontendi anyimola aya shiri jarabi mani muso yesila di anyeke kwa tifamfo ntasimva vila nalo yendi anyeke mangale kansi oku obeke nalo yendi ngoyanyeke makongansi oku savapa Iko kadine yede Konyo musoko kadine Konyo muso lambeti Iko kadine yede Konyo musoko kadine yako kadine yako Mosheri jarabi maninde Alo yenne nina ilefe Mimbe di anero Alo yengo sila ilefe Mimbe di anero Alo yemma kumanile lefe Mosheri Mimbe di anero Muso esila Sheri jarabi maninde aluyenne nina ilefe nimbe di ayero aluyen kosila ilefe nimbe di ayero aluyen makumani lelefe mon sheri nimbe di ayero oh tanti bako iko kadanye ile don kilidanya oko Danyo jeli ko kadanye ile don Kenya o ko kadanye tanti bako iko kadanye ile yele nya o ko kadanye tanti bako iko kadanye ko kadanye mon sheri jarabe maninde mon sheri jarabe maninde.
Ojai, and welcome back. We're at this segment of the show where we'll be interviewing one of our young initiates who has just started with the EC. And he's going to probably share with you some of his experience so far, really, his challenges, like what he's experienced. and what is, what is his expectation really, and what he expects is like at the end of the journey. And so I would like to introduce Waluka, our initiate he's currently the 6th gen, are you?
6th generation.
Yeah, so, you can just, just say what you want to say really of your experience really.
Okay, Ujai all. It's been a powerful session tonight, and thank you for inviting me to be a part of this tonight. With regards to my experience, I suppose, of the Earth Centre so far, it's been challenging and rewarding at the same time. For me personally, the reason why I actually decided to become an initiate at the Earth Centre is I've had this almost like a innate obligation, almost like a calling from my ancestors. That was one of the reasons why I decided to become a part of this, or to be a part of this path, to walk this path, in a sense. One of the other reasons for being a part of the Earth Centre was that I wanted to seek the truth, similar to what the other initiate was talking about.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I came to the UK when I was 7, so I fit into society, and being a teenager, it was fine fitting into society, but it just didn't resonate with me anymore. Hence why, fortunately, eventually, I became a part of the Earth Centre. It's shaped me. I know I've only been an initiate for just over 3 months now, but I've started to notice a change within myself. One of the things that I would say others I've noticed within me is it's one thing to learn something in schools, and then you get your marks and then you're fine. What I'm finding is the stuff that I'm learning within the Earth Centre, I have to actually live it out. Apply it, absolutely. So I notice within the conversations I would have with friends that they're starting to feel that change within me, notice that change within me, and I'm picking up on their body language as well, which is showing me that some of the stuff that I'm talking about, although it resonates with them, although they're interested in hearing a bit more, it's almost a little uncomfortable for them as well, in the sense that they're realising that I'm having to adhere to a set of principles now. And it's interesting to go through that process, in a sense. So for me personally, the Earth Centre's helped me to actually live by those principles, but also acknowledge the change within myself. And I'm just essentially trying to humble myself and just keep learning and growing through this experience, really.
And as the other attorney was saying, though, really, that like as you're saying about your friends, it's like they're interested, but to make the sacrifice of giving up the pleasures what the system is offering out there, it's like that's they think, well, you probably, they look at you like, what kind of fun could you be having doing this, when they believe that they're having fun, but the path that they're on, there's nothing to look forward to at the end of the day, So, as you said, seeing the knowledge of what you was getting before now, how different really, like,
in terms of the knowledge that
that you're receiving now, I suppose, like say when you was in school, or what's been taught out there in the system.
I suppose for me, the main difference, when I look back at the information I learned in the system, I went to secondary school, had lessons, passed exams and etc. I took history exams, took history classes, and although I learnt the information, I learnt it, got through whatever challenges there were with the lesson, and then almost put it down, carried on with life, so to speak. In the Earth Centre, what I am finding is that I'm having to apply that knowledge. I'm having to live it out. In terms of other aspects of the system, say for instance, religion has to be one thing that comes up. I would attend churches, church sessions, but I never really felt connected to what I was doing.
That was before. That was before.
That was before the Earth Centre. Yes. So I'm just trying to make a comparison between what it was like being in the system and what it is now that I'm actually in the Earth Centre. So for me, one of the big differences is that when I was in the schools, when I was in the churches, I would apply stuff, but I felt this obligation that was intensifying, growing over the years. So my teenage years, it was fine, but the older I got, the more I found that I have an obligation to my ancestors. And no matter what avenue I took in terms of going to churches, maybe listening to this YouTube clip here and there, trying to seek some form of identity for myself, I never really felt at home anywhere. And when I came to the Earth Centre, it was that sense of, everything fits now. In terms of like, I know that I'm in a place where I can actually contribute something that my ancestors will be in agreement of. I'm somewhere where I can actually know how to acknowledge my ancestors. I'm somewhere where, although I was in the church systems, and I noticed that religions, or some of the major religions, have common themes throughout. So you might have characters like Moses from one religion to another. They may say Amen at the end of their prayers. So for me, I wanted to seek the truth. I wanted to find out, well, if all these religions have some common themes, where's the source? Where's the origin of this influence? And that's the big difference for me being in the Earth Centre right now, is that everything's starting to connect. The answers are coming. I'm just having to humble myself and grow in the process.
So how's your family kind of embracing you, like say you giving up what you've given up to take this path? Are they in acceptance of it?
But there's nobody that's saying that they're in denial of me taking this path. But I think the best way I could describe it is similar to, I'm a vegan right now. I became a vegan maybe 8-9 years ago, and I would go to a family barbecue, and everybody would kind of watch you, but they wouldn't know how to cater for you. Whereas, for instance, last year when I went to a family barbecue, the person hosting the barbecue would have to cater to vegans, pescatarians, a variety of people. So I suppose what they did when I became a vegan is they just watched and they saw the benefits, the health benefits. They asked, well, what's your views on this? What's your views on that? And eventually, over time, one will come over and ask me, well, what's the steps that I need to take to be a vegan? How's it going to benefit me in the long run? I mean, I don't want to be coming to the end of my life and being the one that's all sick and etc. And I get a similar vibe now with, I know I'm 3 months in, but with regards to my family, they're observing, and the questions will come, and I'm more than happy to, discuss what it is that I've learned in the Earth Center. I mean, I naturally do it with my friends at the moment, so I have a feeling it'll come. And I've got 2 cousins who are showing interest. They wanted copies of the calendars as well. So for them, I know it's they've got that calling within them as well. And I suppose everybody, I suppose, transitions in their own time, so to speak.
So you, in the future, then you can see that you might be an inspiration, really, right, for others to follow. Like, as you say, they're observing and seeing the changes within you, and hopefully they're seeing it was for the better, as opposed to kind of say following the direction that's going to lead you nowhere, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I suppose the way I'm looking at it right now is that if I humble myself and do the things that I should be doing, they will observe and they will ask me, well, what are these principles that you're striving to live by now? So I have no doubt that it's going to be a natural process. And once again, just to mention, the reason why I'm here is to acknowledge my ancestors, to seek the truth, to now to know what it is to be a human. So to be honest, as in I had one concept of what a human was prior to coming into the Earth Center, and all those notions have been
expelled.
Shattered, and so I almost feel like a baby starting from scratch again, but on a rewarding path.
So far though, what's been one of your biggest challenges so far?
For me personally, I would say, so in the Earth Center we get taught about emotional control, having honesty, clarity of mind, strength of character. Humility was one of my one of my biggest challenges to begin with, to be honest. I mean, it's still something that I'm working through, but just, and I discussed it with my friends as well, actually, and I could see their expression on their faces that they thought, wow, this is not a subject that I usually engage with somebody, but they were very intrigued. So for me, in the sense of humbling yourself to be in a position to know that you don't have all the answers. It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to actually admit that you're wrong, because you're growing in the process. So that was, and also just accepting things as they are, rather than you wish for them to be, or how you might try to perceive them in your mind. So that all experience has been challenging, but I'm finding myself adapting. I can feel myself changing in a sense. So that's been one of the challenges. But I also have the 6th generation, so we all discuss our challenges, and it's nice to work through them as a group. Grow together.
They are going to be your family. You're going to find as you go along, really, right? That you get closer and closer as you go along, you know. And
absolutely. I'm definitely finding that now. I mean, my first introduction to the Earth Center was 2 years ago. I heard Nabe Rita speaking. I attended lots of events that a company called Black History Studies used to put on, and one of the organisers, Charmaine, she did a talk, and I told her I was going to leave, and she said, well, there's one more person that's coming on to speak. Why don't you stick around? And that was during the times when I would tell a few white lies here and there. That's another thing that's changed within me. I don't tell white lies again, or I refrain myself from not as many. So I would say probably since I started this whole Earth Center experience, probably 4, 5 have come out, but I'm very conscious of them. I'm very conscious of them. So whereas I probably do
spin 'em
20 a
off.
day or something like that. So, but yes, so to go back to Charmaine told me to stick around. So I told her my lie, saying, "Look, well, I've got some plans a bit later on today, and etc." And she said, "Well, you think about it." So I went away, had something to eat, and I could see the station to go back home and etc. And for some reason, I just decided, well, no, I'm going to go back and I'm going to sit down and hear what this next person has to say. And at that point in my life, I was constantly seeking the truth, almost constantly going to my pastor every week with a new question. And it was things that were, with respect to him, beyond his realm of understanding, realm of awareness. So I remember hearing Naba speaking. I don't remember the entire session I don't remember the entire session or the topics that were being discussed, but I just remember at that time I would always go with my intuition. And as he was speaking, I thought, those questions that I had, there's no lying in what this man's saying. The topics he's discussing, and I have a feeling that those questions I have, they're going to get answered by him or the organisation that he's a part of. So I always remember taking that away with me, and I figured even back then that at some point you're going to be in an Earth Centre. You're going to be there.
Because you said it's 2 years ago you've heard of him, so
Yes.
obviously you must
Yes.
have been digging deep, really, right? And I know that you've been to different events, really. Like I remember when we was going through our session that you actually
Yes.
turned up, sat in on the classes, which
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yes,
so
absolutely.
we saw that. Yeah, this man is kind of he's ready.
It's true. It's true. It's true. So for those after I first heard Naba speak, I would attend some classes. I would come with a notepad. I was grateful to be a part of some of the classes. When you guys had the Zemzems, I would attend one or two talks, actually. Not so much as Zemzem, but attended some of the talks. So I was already, I suppose, familiarising myself with the Earth Centaur, and it's interesting how I actually end up coming here, because a part of me would always procrastinate, so to speak. So I'd say to myself, well, I've got these exams to do, I've got this and that to do. And then earlier this year, January, everything just opened up, as in I live in Leighton, and the Earth Centre, the school is on Sunnyside Road, just literally
Convenient. So you've
so
got no
convenient.
excuse.
Yeah, all exams are out the way. All all obstacles were just removed, so to speak. So I'm glad that I'm a part of this journey, and I know it's not an easy journey, but I feel at peace now in terms of what it is that I'm doing. Definitely. And I no longer have that burning question from my ancestors, almost like you have an obligation. It's not just your life that you're living. There's
you're carrying the baton on, innit?
From carrying that baton on. Yeah. There's responsibilities there. So I just had to listen to that inner voice rather than trying to shun it away, so to speak. So I'm glad for the path that I'm on, and I'm looking forward to learning more as I go, growing, to be honest.
I mean, it's the same thing for me. There was I went through different kind of things, and like a lot of questions was unanswered for me. And as you said, like coming here, really, like it's like seeing everything in one place. Like you got a cake and you cut it up into little pieces. And it's fragmented, so you can never see the whole picture. But coming here is like you see it all.
Absolutely.
You get that clarity of mind, really, because something inside of you tells you really that this is the truth, though, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely get those experiences often. Just even being on this show today, that cake that you're referring to, yeah, I found a little piece there and another piece there, and it's all starting to come together. And I know there's still a huge chunk that I have yet to experience. So it's a path that I'm happy to be on, and I feel that my ancestors want me to be on this path. So that just makes me content.
Well, long may your journey continue, really, right, to make it through
Appreciate
to the end, because it is a challenge, but I
Absolutely.
think you've got what it takes to get there.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that, and I hope my intentions are to actually make it all the way. And it's not just about me. As I mentioned, I have a wonderful generation that I'm a part of, and the intention is for all of us to
get through
get there, together, and I believe we will.
Well, I'm sure, like, working together, it will happen. It will happen, you know.
Thank you, Dwell.
And well, we're sort of a bit short on time now, really.
Absolutely.
Still, so we just want
I
to
do
say,
understand.
Dwell, for your giving us a bit about yourself and your journey, and hopefully that would inspire someone out there who was not sure. As we say, it's not a comfort journey, but it's rewarding.
Absolutely.
You know.
If you don't mind, I'll just say one last little bit, actually. So, although I heard about the Earth Centre 2 years ago, I did procrastinate. I did actually say that I've got exams, I've got this, I've got that. But now that I'm actually taking part in the Earth Centre, I realise that it doesn't matter what obstacles are in life. You adapt. You find a way to continue with all your other obligations. So it's essentially what I'm trying to say is that I should have done this 2 years ago. So if there's anybody that's half thinking, oh, maybe now's not the right time, get involved.
Try it now.
Absolutely.
The most once you try, really, then at least you know. But lingering there, really.
Yeah.
But so as I said, we push for time now, really, right? So we just give thanks, really, right, for your
thank you.
So we just have a last reading to kind of to go through before we end the show, and it's a reading from the Ejpata, and it's gonna be what's the topic? What's the title of that? The horse and the donkey, and this is a reading from the Ejpata. Over to you.
Ujaye and Dua Ubaluka. This is from the Ejpata, the hyena and the donkey. The psychological comfort that enslaves us. There is in the human being an aspect, or let's say a factor, that if triggered reduces our universe and deforms our sense of logic. This factor can sometimes be simply familiarity. Yes, familiarity or habit, a sort of zone of individual comfort that defines the wisdom and all the common senses. It is clear that the human being cannot function if he doesn't find a psychological base from which to act. A human being only fears one thing, that which does not exist. The devil you know is better than the angel you don't know, we often say. It is also true that a lie that is repeated several times is a lot more credible than the truth that is rarely said. Maybe it is simply human to look for spaces of psychological comfort. But how is it that principle of comfort that has allowed the sometimes peaceful cohabitation of humanity and what destroys humanity? Our attitudes resemble the one of a goat that has grown up with a rope on his neck, or the one of a human being who is born a slave. After some time, it becomes difficult to convince them of the oppression they live in. The rope simply becomes part of the goat, and the slave, even in the worst of his humiliation, will find elements of pride just from this zone of psychological comfort that he will find in his enslavement. If we observe our behavior, we will see that every time we are ridiculed in a conversation, it is because we have said ideas that contain nothing real except the logic born of our comfort zones. We must then recognize that there is a lot of evil that we don't see, or that we hesitate to recognize, because its presence is such that it becomes the decor in which we are evolving. The rope has grown with the goat. The story I'm going to tell is a Goromanchi legend from the savannah of the western part of Africa. Mr. Hyena was trotting through the savannah. His nose was constantly sniffing the air with the hope of picking up an odor of a carcass that was decomposing, or simply a wound on a dying animal somewhere. He trotted for kilometers, only sometimes stopping for a drink in a creek. He turned around villages, trying to attack chickens or even sheep that wandered too far from the village. This is the hyena's life. It would be unjust to think that the life of the hyena is not complicated. Hyenas think, and they make decisions. For example, in the last full moon, Mr. Hyena sniffed in the air an odor that was strong, and he followed it. He arrived at a path that was passing a heavily loaded donkey. The donkey was carrying bars of salt and was followed by a human being holding a long stick. Mr. Hyena followed them from far, observing all of their movements and wondering what a donkey and a human being could be saying to each other. He finally decided to try to know more. He cut through the bushes and trotted to the level of the donkey. He whispered, "Hey, Mr. Donkey, what are you doing?" The donkey answered without hesitation, "I'm walking." Without waiting any longer, the hyena went back trotting. The donkey was simply walking, he said to himself, laughing. Later that night, Mr. Hyena woke from his sleep. The image of the donkey that was walking came back to his thoughts. He knows that the donkey was heavily loaded and there was a man behind him with a stick. He spent the rest of the night waiting impatiently for the sun to rise. As soon as he saw the morning coming, Mr. Hyena ran back to the path and waited. He saw the heavily loaded donkey coming. Without attracting the attention of the human with the stick that was following, he came close to the donkey and asked, "What are you carrying on your back? And what is that man doing behind you?" The donkey took his time before he answered, "What I'm carrying on my back belongs to the man behind me, and the stick he is holding is to hit me with every time I slow down." Mr. Hyena trotted away. "The man with the stick forces the donkey to carry his load," he said to himself, laughing, and then disappeared in the bushes. Later that night, Mr. Hyena woke from his sleep, apparently more intrigued than the day before. For him, it was simply impossible to imagine that the one that was carrying the heavy load was only compensated with beatings. He said to himself that the donkey did not tell him the true compensation he was receiving from the man. The thought was that maybe the donkey did not want to share the gifts he was receiving from the man with him. Maybe the human had one of the bags full of big chunks of fried meat. Maybe the human was hitting the donkey, and every time he hit the donkey would open his mouth, and the human would throw a big chunk of meat to the donkey. Oh yes, he had found out what the donkey was hiding. He spent the rest of the evening waiting impatiently for the sun to rise. As soon as morning came, Mr. Hyena ran and hid by the path. He saw the heavily loaded donkey coming. He ran to the donkey and insisted for the donkey to let him carry the load. Mr. Donkey did not let him beg him for too long, As soon as he finished placing the heavy load on the back of the hyena, he went and hid in the bushes. As soon as the hyena received the first beating, he turned his head to one side and opened his mouth widely, waiting for a chunk of meat. Instead of a chunk of meat, he received another blow of the stick on his mouth. He then turned his head to the opposite side, thinking that he might have turned his head to the wrong side. He opened his mouth widely with his eyes closed, and he received another blow. He brought his head down, whimpering with pain. He continued walking, thinking that maybe it was not the right time to eat yet. A few miles later, the hyena turned his head to one side and opened his mouth widely. He received one blow, then another. Whimpering with pain, he threw the load onto the ground and ran through the bushes. The legend says that it is from that day that hyenas always run when they see a human being with a stick.
Well, that's it. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for that reading there. And that was from the Espata, and that was the hyena and the donkey. And that's another book written by Nebnaba Lamusa Moran Denebig. And it's a Kemetic initiating story. Yeah. Yeah, we would just like to read for the proverb of the week, of the day. And it goes, better to be silent and let people wonder than to open your mouth and remove all doubts. So if you haven't got nothing good to say, it's best to be quiet, really. And yeah, before we go, we'd just like to read out the number for the Earth Center. Want to do that?
Yes, the contact details. London is 0207 175 4144. Coventry number is 0247 6266 859 or 073 05 995944. Email enquiries-uk@theearthcenter.org, spelling center as CENTER. Facebook, The Earth Center UK. Twitter, Kebtah UK, that's KEBTAH. Instagram, at the Earth Center of UK, and the website, theearthcenter.org.
You've at the Coventry School. Alright, do well for that. And we would just, before we go, we'd just like to say Duawu and our thanks to Bless FM and Bless for giving us the opportunity, really right, for putting out our information from the Earth Center. And we would like to say, acknowledge the Makaroo for bringing to us this knowledge that we've all been speaking about, really right, that's helping us to go through and to make us better people, really. And so we want to say thanks as well for our attorney from Chicago. That was a wonderful interview, really, and his experience, really, on his journey through initiation. And, you know, it's not easy. No one said it was going to be easy. Yeah. And to our younger initiate, Waluka, on his experience. So we had one that was big ones that's beginning, and one, yeah, for 6 years. Yeah, so it is a challenge, and you know it's different for everyone. But if you're determined, And you know, when you see the information that's given to you, you know that, as everyone has said who has been on the show, really, right, that we've all been on paths, really, that, you know, some of us what we thought was religious paths, some what we thought that was spiritual, but there was still something lacking. And in coming here, really, if you know, our conclusion really was that we've found something really that actually resonates and give us a sense of, well, not a sense of truth. Well, it is the truth, because once you see the information, then you can't deny it, and that's what makes the journey kind of worthwhile. That, you know, you pay to get it. You know, it is, you have to put yourself into it, and it does changes your life. And it hopefully well, it's not hopefully, it does change your life for you to become a better person, because as we say, you know, the topic really was destruction and self-destruction, and that path has been set for us, really, right, to self-destruct. And so in trying to give ourselves some hope to overcome what the system has set for us out there, really, this initiation, really, for those out there, really, who would want to change their life, really, right. You know, we're giving you the address and the phone numbers, and the Earth Center is in Leytonstone. The address is 21 Sunnyside Road, Leyton, E10 7BB. And we're there every Sunday from 10 o'clock till 5 o'clock approximately. So, like, all the literature, the books, the CDs, the calendars, which is one of, as we say, that is the main, yeah, that's the, well, that is our book. That is our what we follow, really, right? Our guidance, really, right? To kind of for us to follow. You know, they give us 10 commandments, really, right? And 10 commandments is easy to follow, but to follow 77, it takes a lot of determination, really, from you, really, right? And so
it's a journey.
Yeah, it is a journey. Yeah, but a journey worth
a
taking.
Very rewarding journey.
Yeah. And so, like, for myself, Nahipsa, and
myself, Kasati,
and both representing the Health Center, we would like to say thank you all. Our word for thank is Dwao, and we hope to see you, or that you'll tune into us again the next strong, coming up for another part to our show. So we just play out this short interlude of music to take us out, and we just give thanks.